a YouTube channel is a resume. I get an email, your request has been approved. Out of nowhere, it exploded. It's very painful.
Imagine what if this was me.
Wow, we're both creators, but we sit in a chair. This is so drastically different.
So I spent the last week really diving into your content and watching a lot of it. And one of your most recent videos is your SWAT video.
Mm-hmm.
This week on Challenge Accepted, I am going to SWAT Academy.
And going through your episodes, I think one of the most interesting things to me was the production quality and how similar it is to television and what we grew up watching, but then how much it acknowledges YouTube. And I'm just curious if you could walk us through that SWAT video and how you think about composing one of these episodes specifically for YouTube, or if you even are thinking about YouTube while you're shooting them.
Oh, we absolutely are.
Cool.
Thank you for noticing, by the way. Well, I think when I started my own channel, I really wanted to make a point to hire people who had experience in traditional. So my fiance and Garrett over there, he's the creative director. He has a really strong background in directing, editing, went to film school like you. Mm-hmm. Our editor worked on Dance Moms. He has a really strong background in reality, and several of the other people on our team have a documentary background. So my goal was to take my background in digital, merge it with traditional, because I think there's a lot to be learned from traditional, right? There's a lot we can lose as well. But for example, reality TV has existed since the early 2000s, and only now, probably in the past 6 years, have we seen people adopt reality TV practices into their work. For example, I think of the 2014 to 2017 vlog era, like Logan Paul, Jake Paul, as very Steve-O. I think of a lot of the best non-scripted stuff, or even what Airrack is doing on his own channel, the dating videos, for example. I mean, that's also early 2000s reality in a lot of ways. History repeats itself, and there's a lot that can be learned. We take a lot of those elements from traditional reality TV, our favorite documentaries. I'm always watching documentary, but then I also look at YouTube meta. What makes the most sense? Okay, well, in a Netflix documentary, they're gonna really live in this particular scene, but if I'm editing it for YouTube, we're gonna take these 3 bites and move on and still keep the same essence of the scene. So that is sort of my goal, because my ultimate goal would be to get nominated for an Emmy for Challenge Accepted next year.
Wow.
Because I kind of want to beat traditional at their own game.
Wow. That's very cool. There's one thing that we often say, which is don't make TV for the internet. And I think watching your show has kind of proved us wrong in a way, or showed us how you can take traditional and turn it into an internet show.
In the SWAT video in particular, you go through like 4 challenges in the first 2 minutes.
In order to pass, I need to sprint a quarter mile in under 85 seconds, do 30 sit-ups in a minute, 20 push-ups in a minute, 6 pull-ups, and then complete the obstacle course in under 4 minutes, all back to back to back.
That type of action would never happen on television.
Right.
Like, you give away too much.
Exactly.
Like that as a tangible example of being like, oh no, this is not TV for the internet. This is YouTube. And it's the first time we've seen it at that production quality.
Thank you.
How do you pitch the show Challenge Accepted? Like if we're hopping on
the log line?
Yeah, if we're hopping on the phone right now, like how do you explain what the show is?
So Challenge Accepted is a documentary series wherein I take on the world's most intense and unique professions, lifestyles, and communities for an extended period of time to see how far an amateur can go under the best training possible.
I knew you would have that
dialed
locked.
like
I knew that was going to be locked. I could feel it. That was great.
It had to be, because for a long time, because it's such an interesting show, because I think there are a lot of shows where, a lot of reality shows show celebrities trying something for a day, right?
Yeah.
And we've seen that format. It's really cool. But what we're doing is very different, because I want to really push myself. I want to fully immerse myself into whatever I'm committing to. When for example, I just finished a challenge where I trained like a competitive cheerleader. For that, I changed my entire lifestyle. 9 to 5, my job changes. I'm going to training, I'm doing ice baths, I'm watching videos, I'm reviewing my footage, I'm watching tutorials, I'm training with a private coach, I'm going to different gyms. I want to commit fully. And I think that's what makes Challenge Accepted unique, is the commitment level.
That's really cool. I also just love that you can describe your show and your format to us. I think that is a practice that all creators should work on, because if you can't explain it, then how can the audience understand it?
Right.
And word of mouth is still the best growth strategy. Someone turning to someone else and saying, hey, you should check out this show called Challenge Accepted. It's where, and if they can't fill that back part in, they're not even going to suggest the show because it's hard to explain.
And it expands beyond that, because you think of, when you get to a certain level, you have agents, you have managers pitching for you. It needs to be good enough so that their Diet Coke version of, your Coke version of it actually makes sense to whoever's going to work with you.
These videos that you're making take a long time to make.
Yes.
And that is
inefficient, but
not necessarily inefficient, but I think it's like a newer version of the culture on YouTube. Like, for example, so far this year, MrBeast has put out 3 videos, right? And that's like 4 or 5 months. He's only put out 3 videos. I think there's a culture that's moving in the direction of, less and higher quality. But to take that amount of time to make a video, that is kind of suggesting that you have some way of financing production. And I'm just curious, like, what are the constraints you're under to do something like that, where you can take 3 months to make a video? How does that work from supporting your team, supporting your business, growing what you're doing? Like, what are the economics of that, or how does that net out?
It's a really great question. So obviously what we're doing is pretty different from most people. We don't have a regular upload schedule necessarily. Videos take anywhere from 1 week to 1 year to film. There have been 2 episodes that took an entire year to film.
Wow.
And I think that the way that we approach it is we sort of have a few different buckets of income flow. So first I have my fitness app, MK Fit. You can download it. First month is $1. We also have, just natural, I call it like the baseline AdSense of, if you don't upload anything for a month, you can expect at least this baseline. That's one. And then we do rely heavily on brand deals. But the way I like to approach brand deals is a little bit different. I actually make like full pitch decks for our entire slate. Because we take so long to make the videos, I know all the videos we're filming all the way through September of this year already. They're already planned, they're booked, flights, everything.
Wow.
So with that ammunition, we can go to a wide variety of sponsors and get a higher dollar value amount, because we have so much information, not only on what we're filming, but also on the track record of the channel. We know that an episode of Challenge Accepted could get this many views. We know that because FBI did well, a video of similar category could also potentially do just as well. So I like to plan.
Would you rank the SWAT video on the more expensive end of the spectrum when it comes to your videos?
No.
No.
SWAT is probably one of the more affordable videos.
Oh, interesting.
So the reason that SWAT is more affordable, let's say, it's still expensive, still pretty freaking expensive, is because it's only shot over a few days. Now, albeit they're very jam-packed days, but it's just that week. When I commit to something for an extended period of time and we're involving coaches, multiple filming days, training montages, meaning we have to film like 12 different days and then cut it into 60 seconds to give the appearance of me progressing over time, that is when things add up. And I would say that the current episode I'm training for right now, boxing, is probably the most expensive one, because I'm training 5 days a week, multiple coaches, nutritionist, ice bath.
Does it ever scare you to make the upfront investment like that? Or is it the sponsors, and like some of your episodes don't have sponsors?
Yeah, boxing doesn't have a sponsor.
Doesn't have a sponsor. So like, is that upfront investment, is it like, do you look at it as the AdSense that's generated by this video, or is it more of the holistic picture of the business and the catalog of like, this, I'm investing in this and it will add to the overarching, income generated by the company? I
would say it's more of that.
Got it.
Will boxing outperform 911, which we shot in a day? We shot that video in a day. And I don't know. I mean, that video really did super well. So, but for me, honestly, I like investing in life experiences. Boxing, however it performs, is one of the best life experiences I have encountered. Getting to work with an Olympic athlete for the extended period of time I have, the mental and emotional growth I have had from that, I can't put a view count or a monetary amount on that. So as long as we can afford it in the time, let's do it. That's sort of how I operate. Maybe it's not the most
That's cool.
financially savvy, but I like to invest in life experiences.
The interesting thing, though, is that YouTube does facilitate the opportunity for the numbers to even out. And I was listening to one of your early podcasts, and this may be outdated, but you said that episodes can cost anywhere from $10,000 to $30,000.
Yeah.
And in that time period, those numbers, for the amount of views you're doing, actually from an AdSense perspective, can even out.
A little bit.
A little bit.
The sponsors are definitely necessary for
Yeah.
our business operation.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's not efficient. I mean, sure, we're doing millions of views, but like MrBeast, even in his early days, shoots a video in a day and it gets 10 million views.
Yeah.
So we're at this point in time trying to have all of these plates going of like, how can we rival traditional, go for awards in that category, but then also do well on YouTube. And sometimes, should we cut things out that typically a year ago we would have kept in to make it better for retention?
Yeah.
Like we're trying to balance all of that at one time.
Yeah.
When we pop around to those other business functions like brand deals now, I guess like how do you think about what is required to be a creator who does well in brand deals and has that be their top line of revenue?
I think to do well in brand deals, you have to be thinking in the mindset of advertisers. We will make videos specifically that have no other logos and brands in them that we think are just going to perform super well. Like the etiquette video, that when a brand comes along, it's a perfect placement for them. Sometimes for example, I did a video that's coming out this month where I spent a week with the U.S. Army. And for that was actually an outreach thing that I wanted to do. I had seen that the Army has done paid placement with other creators before. And I was like, I think we could do this and make it really awesome. So I actually pitched to them through my representation. I think that it is about like when we talk about brand friendliness, I feel like there's this connotation of made for kids or it has to be super clean. And I think it just has to be respectful and genuine to you. There are brands that reach out to us wanting to offer a substantial amount of money that we decline because we're like, it just doesn't make sense and it's going to inflame our audience. Because to me, the most important person in our business is the audience.
Yeah.
And I would take that over any brand deal anytime.
Yeah, I saw your Marine video is sponsored by the Marines.
Yeah.
I want to say a special shout out to the U.S. Marine Corps for sponsoring this video and allowing me to do something that very few civilians get to do.
That's so interesting. It's such it's almost, I guess in that sense, it's like branded content.
Yes.
Right? Do they have a lot of say in the edit or how it comes together when you do something like that, when you work with the Army or the Marines? Are they looking
Yeah,
at
when
the
you're working
creative?
with a client like the U.S. government,
Yeah.
there are a lot of rules. But what has been really helpful to us is we have done so many of these deals, we actually have a process. So whenever a brand, we work with them, I have a list of like 12 questions they have to answer before we sign a contract. So that's what's the length of the ad placement? What are the talking points? How many rounds of feedback? What is the timeline? That kind of stuff. So we're super, super clear before the contract. Because sometimes you sign a contract and you figure that out later. I want to know the exact plan before any of that is made. And from that, we're able to proactively shoot something that fits what the brand wants, but is also going to be a viral video for us. And in the case of the U.S. Army, actually, the original pitch they came to us was completely different from what we ended up with. And we pushed back and we're like, this is the version we're pitching right now is actually what's going to perform well and be what our audience wants. And we were able to meet in the middle before anything was signed, which was really great.
Is that something you learned from experiencing the opposite? Or is that kind of training you got even as far back as BuzzFeed of like being that ahead of schedule or that ahead of like what problems may arise?
I definitely learned it on the job, I would say, more because at BuzzFeed, I never did branded content. I never interfaced. That was a completely different department. And also just from like my dad is an entrepreneur and business owner himself. So he was constantly like, you need to read everything and best understand it. And I think too, like we've all been in positions where brands have taken advantage of us as creators or asked for more than previously stated. So for me, I'm like, let's get really clear. Are you going to ask for those things? Okay, that is X dollars more. Or we don't want to do that. I like to proactively ask all the problems that can arise ahead of time.
I love what you even said about like keeping the episodes clean of other logos.
Yeah.
Just in case. I think that's something that a lot of creators don't think about. And when I look at your videos, they are so clean. I looked at your catalog, and how many seasons have you done of Challenge Accepted?
This is our 3rd season.
And I was looking at those and thinking like the opportunity that these would get licensed potentially and end up on another platform seems so ripe because they are so clean.
I'm available.
Is that something that you thought about going into it, or that's
No,
ever
not
come your
really.
way?
What we felt when we first watched it was like a network could pick up this stuff, right? Like they literally pick up Challenge Accepted as a show and distribute it as is on a show, whether that's Discovery, Disney Plus, HBO
We've
Max.
talked to them before.
You have talked to them about picking up pre-existing episodes or filming new episodes. And is that part of your aspiration, or is YouTube actually, have you reached that point of like, this is the pinnacle of making my own show, is controlling my own distribution?
Well, from the beginning, like most of us, I had a dream of like, oh, I want to be on a TV show or whatever. And what's interesting is as Challenge Accepted grew, we started getting a lot of interest from production companies, and we were taking these meetings with huge, like people who have made the best Emmy-winning non-scripted content of all time. And what was interesting is we would go in these meetings and they would be like, we love Challenge Accepted. We want to do it just like it. And then I would tell them how long it takes to make the episodes. They'd be like, walk us through our production process. And I'm like, okay, so for the video where I train like an Olympic figure skater for 60 days, we have a month of prep. I train for 60 days, then 6 weeks of post. And they're like, wait, so you spend 5 months on a video? And I'm like, well, yeah, I'm like literally training for 60 days. What do you think is going on? And they would be like, well, is there another way we can do this, but like in a week? And I was like, what is the point of giving up my IP of something is a beloved part of my life at this point, and theoretically going to a network that my audience is going to assume has more money and therefore should be bigger production, to do something that could be a reality show from 2002 of any celebrity trying something for a day? I just thought it was stupid. So I said no.
Like more money for a watered down version essentially of what I'm
and less
already
control.
doing. You know what I will say though, is I feel like TV often has access to whatever they're filming. It's like you watch a TV show, especially reality TV, I'm amazed that like they have access to celebrities, to organizations like you have access to, right? Like I'm always amazed that you do back up the title thumbnail. You are actually with, SWAT or FBI or whatever it is. How do you go about getting that type of access? Like that to me is something that I find to be really rare on YouTube. That does actually separate often YouTube from television.
I think it's two things. I think it's a track record, legitimacy. The resume of our YouTube channel is completely different from most other creators. And also, people ask me all the time, how did you get to work with the FBI? And here's what happened. I'll just tell you guys.
Yeah. And now a quick word from the sponsor of today's episode.
So traditional entrepreneurs start with a product or service, and they work to try and find customers or audience for that product. The way creators work is we build an audience first, and then we try and figure out products that we can sell to that audience.
And that's where the sponsor of today's episode, Shopify, really comes into play for creators. When you have an audience and you want to sell them something, Shopify is where you go.
Now, we've been partnered with Shopify for 2 years, and they're truly investing in creators. We're actually in Arizona right now at the Shopify Creator Commerce Summit, where they brought a bunch of creators here to learn about how to build businesses. They even launched a new product called Link Pop, which makes it much easier to sell products to your audience. It's a link in bio tool, but it's designed to be shoppable from the start.
So if you're a creator and you don't yet have a Shopify store, Link Pop is actually a really great place to start because you don't have to have a full-on Shopify store. You can just go ahead and start your Link Pop to start selling.
So the link to our Link Pop is in all of our descriptions. So if you click that, you can get to our newsletter, our course, our other social platforms, as well as this blue Publish app, which is sold out. But if it wasn't sold out, the way you could buy it is that you add to cart and purchase, and you do that all within 3 clicks right there in the link pop. You guys are going to grab your link pop URLs and tweeting them at us, which is awesome because they are running out. Do you have linkpop.com/Colin?
I don't. Please don't take it.
If you want to explore what it's like to have a shoppable link in bio, head to the link in our description, go to link pop and claim your URL. And thank you so much to Shopify for partnering with creators like us and bringing us to the desert.
But mainly for partnering with creators like us. The desert is nice, it's lovely.
It's hot.
It is hot, it is hot.
People ask me all the time, how did you get to work with the FBI? And here's what happened. I'll just tell you guys. Yeah. We found a 1-800 number on the website, like FBI.gov.
No.
We call the 1-800 number. I'm like, there's no way this is going to work. And Garrett's like, just call them, just see what happens. And they're like, oh, here's an email you can email. You know, they gave us some generic request at FBI.gov. I don't even know. It was something like that. So I put together a proposal and I wrote an email, send it, nothing. We hear nothing back for 4 months. And then completely out of the blue, I get an email and it says, your request has been approved.
Wow.
And I was like, Garrett, the FBI has approved our request. What's going on? And then from there, they connected us with Jeff, the Hollywood guy. He's called the Hollywood guy in the FBI. And he's...
Wait, he works at the FBI.
Yeah, and he's called the
Hollywood guy. That's his job title at FBI.
Well, maybe not his official job title, but that's what everybody calls him.
Okay.
Wait, also it's so FBI that they weren't like, let's get on a call. They were like, request approved.
Actually,
and like, Garrett, we're in. Let's go.
So we connect with Jeff, the Hollywood guy. So he is the person. So a lot of these organizations have a Hollywood PR kind of person who, you know, you think of those like crime procedural shows that involve the FBI in a scripted capacity. He's the person who reviews those scripts and approves them and makes sure it's not defaming or whatever to the FBI. So he connected with us and he's like, well, I'm retiring in a month. Let's just see what happens. And he had never approved another YouTuber before, but he was like, I'm retiring, so who cares?
Okay, timing.
Yeah, so we got really, got a great opportunity there. And then from there, we sort of just followed the same format. So again, I think a well-placed email can open any door. And in this case, it was the door to Quantico.
Amazing. Wow. 1-800 FBI, 1-800 SWAT.
I don't even, do you remember? It was like 1-888 FBI help or something. Yeah, you just Google it.
Let's call them right now. Let's get them on the phone.
That's incredible.
Don't say I sent you. I don't want them to have a bunch of people calling.
I'm curious. So for us, a lot of times our video cycle takes about like 2 weeks. And there are times when our videos don't turn out the way we wanted them to, things go wrong, and the videos don't come out. And it's devastating. And those videos take us 2 weeks. Mm-hmm. Has there ever been a moment for you where you've taken 3 months, 6 months, a year, and the video doesn't net out? How do you deal with that? Or is that something that you don't deal with anymore?
Are you just hitting home runs?
Yeah, like do you just understand it so well now that that's not a problem?
I mean, there have been, do you mean like where you scrap the project altogether?
Yeah.
Or you upload it and the viewership's not where you want it to be and it just didn't perform. Like when you invest that much time, how do you deal with?
It's painful. It's very painful. But I like to approach whenever we hit upload, it's a video we love. You know, we can't control the views. We can't control how it hits the algorithm. We can do everything we can to make the title as clickable and, do as many options for the thumbnail, A/B test, whatever. But at the end of the day, if it doesn't hit, I mean, it's devastating. But the one thing I can hold on to is I'm proud of the video. Never upload anything I'm not proud of.
I think that's a really interesting and important point for a lot of creators to hear around success metrics and exploring what makes a video successful. Is it exclusively performance, like viewership? And I don't think it can be. I think as creators, to build a long-lasting career, you have to have something else that's, even if it's as simple as, I'm proud of the creative. Because what's interesting is you'll see, even when something doesn't perform, like you mentioned, we've seen where the videos have a profound impact on the people who did watch it.
Yes.
And so I think that's such an important thing to recognize too, is that you might not be building as much width all the time, but you're building depth with your audience.
I love what you just said, because at the beginning of my own personal channel, And I think a lot of creators experience this. You just want to throw as much stuff at the wall, see what sticks, and you're really going for views, or at least I was.
Right.
You do what you can for views. But then I sort of got to this point where half the content on my channel was stuff that when people recognized me on the street, I was like, I don't know if I want to be known for the other stuff I'm doing, not this category A. I want to be known for category B, which for me was these deep, intensive challenges I was doing. So my goal was to reduce as much of category A and pump it all into B. And now I only want to do content I love. And I think that it's a tough investment to make, because you might see it's hard to avoid the low-hanging fruit, when you see an opportunity for, I can make that video or that short and it'll do super, super well, and to say no to that and invest in something you care about more. But I've actually found that the return on that investment is even better, because brands respect you more. Over time, subscribers respect you more, because they know that they're coming for high quality every single time. Because, a YouTube channel is a resume. But it's a very interesting resume, because when a brand or anyone, potential partner, even a potential subscriber comes to look at it, you can't control what they're going to click on. And that one thing they click on could make or break why they decide to work with you or subscribe to you. And I want to make sure every single piece of content, even if it doesn't have a ton of views, is one that shows the quality of the channel.
That's really good. I like that a lot. Just the concept that you can't control what people are going to land on.
Where does the inspiration come for this show? Is it a mix of traditional and digital? Like, how do you come up with this unique show that you have?
Well, for me, I was actually a professional athlete first.
My name is Michelle Khare. I am the reigning U23 national champion for cycling, and this year is my first year riding as a professional.
So I was a professional cyclist. At the same time, I was working my 9-to-5 job right out of college. And it sort of got to this point where I was like, one of the reasons I loved being a cyclist was that I felt like I had this unique opportunity to encourage more women to do it. I mean, also just being a person of color too, I was often the only person of color at a lot of the races I attended. And then I realized that with digital, I could use my athletic background to hit a more broad range of things and not only uplift those communities, but also show someone who looks like me doing it. So choosing to give that up to do Challenge Accepted was a really, really big decision for me. But I think it's born out of like my passion for athleticism and challenging myself innately. I prefer to be a jack of all trades than a master of one. And also, I love documentary content. I consume it all the time. And I just feel like there is this really unique opportunity on YouTube to support an ecosystem that doesn't require someone else greenlighting it. And so I want to support that way more personally.
I remember when I was growing up, the only representation of what it was like to be Indian, like the primary one was Apu. On The Simpsons, which was like not played by an Indian, and it was like a caricature, right? And so there was not any connection to, what I looked like or that I could do something in entertainment. And I think that was something that also drove me. And I was curious if you could speak a bit more about the concept of representation as a female of color on YouTube, which is predominantly right now, I would say, dominated by white males.
Yeah. I mean, the reason that I feel like I avoided this industry for so long was because even growing up doing school plays, where am I going to fit in Hairspray or Oklahoma? You know what I mean? So I felt like just by nature, it was like, there's literally not a part for me to play that makes sense in this area of the world, and why waste time on it? Now, what I really admire about YouTube is that it gives that opportunity. And it honestly wasn't until I started making the videos and seeing comments from people that were like, I've never seen an Indian woman portrayed as strong before. I've never seen somebody who looks like me literally doing this. I've never met a firefighter that is your height or skin color. And not that I'm actually becoming any of those things, but that I'm inviting the possibility for that to happen, I didn't think was groundbreaking. I was like, let's just do a great video. You know, it sort of came out of that for me. And I think I'll always have a little bit of like, I want to prove traditional wrong when I think about, I mean, I've had auditions. So like I auditioned for stuff like theatrically in Hollywood, and I've been told, oh, well, you're not Indian enough to do this because I'm half Indian. But then, you know, well, we weren't really looking for someone who looks like you for this. Can you read for the Latina role? I'm like, literally, no, I'm not going to do that. That's just super inappropriate. Yeah. But I've been told these things, and it's just a waste of my time. Why would I sit here trying to prove to somebody that I deserve to be there when I can do it myself? And there are millions of people who champion it and are right there behind me. I'm definitely going to go in that direction. And I want to support a platform that invites that opportunity. Traditional doesn't give that opportunity. Even if I'm like the token person of color in whatever TV show as a guest star, cool, great for them. They get to check off that diversity thing. And, you know, maybe eventually down the line, they'll put someone who looks like me as the lead. But why not do it now and challenge them? Like, get off your ass and make it happen now.
Yeah, I love that. That's awesome.
It's really clear to me as I look at your channel that your why for making these videos does come off the platform from that history.
Absolutely.
Because in the challenge genre, I feel like it's very easy for creators to come up with the title thumbnail first for something so bizarre that is just made for a title thumbnail.
Yes.
That is not necessarily based in like a personal experience.
Yes.
And I feel like with your channel, it's so clear that like the goal is the personal experience that you go through. It happens to mesh really well with the YouTube algorithm and with a title thumbnail, but that's not the basis for the idea.
Of course. I want the title to be so astounding and deliver on the premise. I tried FBI Academy. What? She went to the FBI?
Yeah.
And you're actually going to see that in the video. It's
Right,
not
yeah.
me hiring an FBI agent to train me for a day. We are literally going to the FBI Academy.
Do you consider yourself as a part of the challenge genre on YouTube? Like when you look at MrBeast, you look at Ryan Trahan, Airrack, do you see all of you in the same genre or no?
Well, even within that, I think that MrBeast and Ryan Trahan are completely different creators. I guess technically it's challenge, but I think more broadly, we're all non-scripted in a certain way. I feel like I align more with non-scripted than I do the connotation of what people think in challenge, which is very strange because challenge is the name of the series, like Challenge Accepted. But when I think of challenges on YouTube, I think of something that's grand and big for the title and thumbnail and lasts a day typically, which is great. Whereas I feel like how I want to differentiate from that is the documentary storytelling perspective, really highlighting the communities that do this every single day.
Yeah.
I mean, going to train like a firefighter is different from going to Firefighter Academy because we're going to meet the people who have worked at the biggest wildlife fires in the world, who have, you know, gone to Australia on deployment during the 2020 fires, who have really seen stuff firsthand, and honestly, things that I can't even say that I challenged myself to do. I always want to make sure that we include an element in the videos highlighting the people who do this every single day.
Yeah, I think empathy is a really interesting ingredient in your videos. Like the 911 dispatch video where you kind of look and you say, okay, well, wow, I've never thought about the people who actually work this job. And then further, if you go into the comments of your videos, I think what's really interesting is people reflecting that, but then also asking you to come join their community and do a challenge in their community. That must be a very special experience for you to have people look at what you're doing not as, oh, she's exploiting our community for views or anything like that, or for her own personal gain, but actually, hey, she's showcasing our community to the world in a light that they've never seen.
Empathy is the centerpiece of any challenge we take on. And sometimes we will convince somebody to work with us, and we'll get in the meeting and they'll have a perception that we want to deliver like a Hollywood watered down version of it, or I don't want the real thing. And a lot of times I'm in the meetings, I'm like, I want you to put me through my paces. I want you to give it to me real. Even if I fail on camera.
Time. 555.
555. Okay. Good job. So obviously, I have not passed the entrance qualifications for being a part of STPD SWAT.
Unfortunately, you have not.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Because it shows how difficult it is for anybody else to do it and how amazing it is that you can go into a burning building with bravery and rescue a family. I mean, it would be insane to assume that after only a few days of training, I could actually successfully do that. And, you know, it's cool that we get to have those experiences. But I am always like, you know, give it to us straight. Let's have the real experience.
I think one of the craziest examples of those moments is the gas chamber in the Marine episode.
Yeah.
Like when you walk out of that, it is crazy. Like your eyes are tearing up. There's like snot coming from your nose and you're like, holy shit, that was a real experience you just had. That is crazy. And then the thought of that is part of Marine training. Like that is something everyone has to do in Marine training.
Right.
And part of your job.
Yeah.
The first thing I thought was, wow, we're both creators, but we sit in a chair. You know, like this is so drastically different.
Yeah, exactly.
I think there's a lot of ingredients when I look at Challenge Accepted as a format of why it is successful and why it's garnering millions and millions of views. I think when you look at it, like you open the show and you say, here's the thing I'm doing. So already there's a tension point, right? Because it's something that probably we've never seen before. FBI training, Marine training, SWAT training, even chess, right? These are things that like we don't understand. So there's a tension point of, oh, I want to see what it's like for her to go through. And that's kind of the act one and the hook. And as you get into the act two, there's this like tension of the process of, well, what does it actually look like? And I want to keep watching because like now you're running an obstacle course and you're doing these things that basically introduce new tension points and release them constantly in the episode. Where you're given mini challenges within the grander challenge. The second part, I think, in that act two that's so interesting is that as an audience member, you're naturally drawn to be like, well, could I do that? And so every challenge you're doing, while I'm watching your show, my head is doing calculations on like, well, what would it be like for me if I did push-ups and then I had to run this obstacle course? How fast could I do the obstacle course? How many pull-ups could I do, right? Like it's such an interesting active participation from the audience. And then act three is kind of this like conclusion and wrap up where you do a really good job of kind of bringing together this whole experience and why it matters in the grander scheme of things. Mm-hmm. That is like pretty clear cut storytelling structure.
For all of our episodes, even before we start filming, we outline the whole thing. We sort of, we never script anything, but we can usually assume, okay, the gas chamber, that'll probably be a low point for Michelle, you know? And so we kind of like fit those things in. We take all of the different activities I'm doing and we build them out as scenes. We anticipate, okay, this scene will probably be 90 seconds. This will be 30 seconds and build it out to see the runtime. We rearrange them. A lot of the times you're watching the episodes, they are completely out of order in the way we shot them. And then we always want the final challenge to be a culmination of everything.
Is that something that, as you look back in your story, you know, you worked at Buzzfeed for some time. Is that something that you feel like learning the ingredients to make an internet video or make, you know, just documentary? Is that something you learned there? Is that something that you picked up prior to that? I
didn't go to film school. So a lot of what I learned comes from Garrett, from Silas, our incredible editor, who have these really strong traditional backgrounds. And what I learned at BuzzFeed, you know, BuzzFeed was a really interesting experience for me because it was grad school for YouTube. And coming from the Indian background, having a 9-to-5 job in YouTube sounded better than I'm going to go out, quit my job and do this thing. And it offered this really interesting opportunity for me to hone those skills of video making, retention. I mean, we had classes on how to make a thumbnail and how to choose the title,
right? Which was really, you know, really interesting experience for me to learn. But always the goal was to be my own content creator and business owner. And for me, BuzzFeed was sort of a stop along that journey to get the education I needed to continue on. I think there's a lot of parallels there from being an athlete. Where as an athlete, you have coaches in most of your facets of what you're doing, right? Like I'm assuming as a professional cyclist, you had a coach.
Yes.
Right? And maybe you had a different strength coach and maybe you had a nutritionist or something like, and you have coaches in all these areas. And I think as an entrepreneur, as a content creator, what's funny is, I don't know if you know this, but we actually spent a week at BuzzFeed doing like a academy essentially there. That was like an
Wait, when? Was I
this
there?
was in 2017.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What month?
I have no idea.
Okay.
That
We
I
may
know.
have
It was
overlapped.
cold. It was cold outside. I remember
And there's
that,
a video
yeah.
on our YouTube channel about
Yeah.
it, so you may be in the background.
You might be in it, but yeah.
Were y'all were at Siren Studios then?
That's
Okay.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, so we spent a week there and we did everything you're describing. We actually show in this this week long edit that we did that showed us like learning how to identify our audience, learning how to write titles, learning how to brainstorm thumbnails. Like it was school that we never had traditional. There is no traditional YouTube school.
Yeah, it's funny how you said that you had class on titles and thumbnails, because we showed up the first day and it was school.
Yeah.
And both
Yeah.
of us were like, we hate school.
We were panicked.
can't
we
do
were
it.
panicked. We were like,
panicked,
what did
yeah.
we just sign up for? We have to be in
When
school.
when
for-
class ended,
Yeah.
we would go out into the hall and be like, I can't believe we signed up for this. I
Yeah.
can't believe we're doing
Well,
this.
there's a lot of anxiety as like entrepreneurs who are like, this is not productive. Like,
Yeah.
we should be
like, we're losing money being here.
we should be in our studio making videos. We should not be here for a week. And then by the end, it was a complete, we reflect on that week as like some of the most interesting lessons ever
Of course.
learned.
Yeah.
And I think there's obviously general like connotations with BuzzFeed as a organization and as a creative studio, but you can't, like, spending the week there, you can't deny the skill set that they've crafted in that
Of
that
course.
office in that studio.
Whether or not you like the videos,
Yeah.
everyone has heard of BuzzFeed.
Of course,
Yes.
yeah. And they've done an amazing job of doing that. And even some of the formats that have come out of BuzzFeed, Worth It, I think is a great example.
Yeah.
Like unbelievable, right? Like there's
and the creators that have come out of
Unsolved.
Yes.
Yeah, the creators that have kind of emerged from that school of content have built massive platforms, including yourself. So I do think that is a really interesting thing to talk about around taking a job doing something that you eventually want to do is not necessarily something to look down upon, or even I feel like the
No.
culture right now of creators is like, just go independent immediately. Like,
Right.
it's almost like a straight to the league vibe.
You said it exactly correct in that I think there's definitely a culture of quit your job, worked for me, it's definitely going to work for you. I didn't do that. I view working for a company or even another creator and their company as paid grad school. Go
Yes.
to learn everything you can. And when you feel ready to graduate and do your own thing, do it. For me, I was saving money for an entire year before I quit my job and like making a plan. I prepped videos for 6 months leading up to turning in my 2 weeks on the weekends, not during work hours, on the weekends. Want to make that very clear. Because that's what you have to do. And for me, again, in my background, what my dad really drilled into me about entrepreneurship is you can go towards fear and you can go towards risk, but you better have a plan. There's no point in jumping off a cliff without some sort of parachute or safety net as a backup. And so for me, I had like 3 months of savings, maybe.
I feel like a lot of people also like don't have a plan. I feel like,
Yes.
especially like young people coming out of college, and that's the best time to get a job. Like for me, that's the first thing I did. I got a job working at a hotel, and whatever I chose to do after I got out of work showed me maybe what I did want to do.
Yes.
And that was like filming and editing on my own time, right? So sometimes like just getting any job is a step towards figuring out what you want to do, even if you
Absolutely.
hate that job.
And now today, there's so many opportunities to have a job doing a creative thing. I, on the other side, also coming from an Indian background, with an entrepreneurial father who, immigrated and kind of was like in survival mode and had to figure something out and did. My storytelling as a kid was almost the opposite, which was just jump so that you have to survive and then climb your way out.
Yeah.
Right. And that's exactly what I did. I was just like, all right, I'm just going to start something and see
That's
how
great.
it goes.
And that works for a lot of creators.
Yeah, I'd say that though, I could have had a more accelerated path if I didn't think like that at times. I think there's some of it that's like, you have to have that so you know how to, solve problems in a very unique way and do stuff just by yourself. But we had the same experience when we went and our first company got acquired and we got to work within a company that was building and monetizing YouTube properties. We both refer to that as our grad school.
Definitely.
And it was our paid grad school. We left that company with no plan and not really a, proper, what you're describing, we did not do. We just jumped and we were like, let's start a channel called Colin and Samir and see what happens.
Well, it's working.
It's 4 years later. Yeah, it's 4 years later now. But yeah, that is something that I oftentimes look at creators and say, if you have the opportunity to go work with a creator or work at a creative company, go take that.
Yes.
Hone your craft and then step out. Cause you're going to find this is all a journey of self-discovery, right? I can imagine that when you first started working at Buzzfeed and making videos, Challenge Accepted was not something that immediately clicked. No. You did do some challenge videos there, right?
I did some physically taxing videos.
The
there.
UFC
Yes, I
video.
did. Video where I trained a UFC fighter for 60 days. Did a video where I trained for a marathon in 10 weeks.
Got it. So what did you learn from transitioning to becoming independent? What was there anything that was oh wow, this is really different now? Meaning making videos within a company versus making videos independently. Was there a big stark difference or a learning curve for anything beyond even just making the videos, running the business, anything like that? Or did you feel like it was a pretty smooth transition?
It was definitely a big transition. Some of the positives were at the full-time job, there were a lot of restrictions on what we could or couldn't do at that time outside of work. And in many ways, I actually felt like we were sort of sheltered from the YouTube community at large. And so it was really nice to be able to make those connections outside and sort of do something without having to have it go through a bunch of approvals. I think the other thing that I sort of realized also is that there have been several creators who have left BuzzFeed and get 1 million followers in a week. Try Guys, Sophia Nygaard, incredible creators who are able to carry that over. But it's also on you as a creator to keep that momentum going. A shout out only goes so far, or people knowing you from somewhere else. And we've seen that. I mean, there have been plenty of people who have been shouted out by huge creators. You have a massive bump, it goes great for a month, and then sometimes they even quit or fall off entirely. So I sort of knew this wasn't really a learning. I was like, this is going to, my Why I Left BuzzFeed video will probably do really well, but it's on me to have 3 more viral videos right in the can, ready to go to hit the algorithm and the recommended page as soon as this goes out.
How did you navigate that in the very beginning? You get that bump from leaving BuzzFeed. You have to focus on the creative. You need to have good videos coming out. But at the same time, you're now on your own from a sales and business perspective. In the very beginning, how did you navigate that?
So I sort of strategically was ready such that when any video went viral, that was when I started reaching out to agents and managers, right after I had a bump. Because I was like, this is the best time. I look, better than I did a month ago.
Yep.
And I was able to get representation pretty quickly, which was really nice.
So what was your first brand deal coming out of working at BuzzFeed? So
my very first brand deal on my own channel was for a different fitness app. Shall not be named. No, they were great to work with.
Got it.
Just in competition with us now. And it was a dedicated video. So the whole video was about the app for $7,000. And at the time I was like, oh my God.
Yeah, I mean, that's crazy.
This is amazing,
right? Yeah.
And when I learned later how many downloads we netted them, I realized we should have asked for way more.
Yeah.
But that was one of my first experiences. And I was so excited because one of the benefits of working at a company is financial stability. A negative is there's no vested interest when growth happens, always. And where I was at in the company, it didn't matter how my videos performed, I was paid the same. And getting that first brand deal gave me an understanding of motivation of the better I do, the better things become overall. It was really inspiring. So I had that taken care of, but in terms of building a team, it was a lot to navigate because I was also kind of like I mentioned earlier, I strategically wanted to hire people from traditional. Traditional is, and with that, it was not only hiring them, but also training them on digital and getting them accustomed to all of that. So that was a huge learning experience as well. And a lot of it was, starting as freelance and then eventually moving people to full-time.
Can you describe the primary difference between people trained in traditional and what they need to learn about digital? for people who are just for people who are watching, let's say there's people who are watching who are in the traditional entertainment space. Like what is the key difference and what do you need to learn?
I think you have to be a fan of the content. I think being a fan of the platform and the content, whether it's YouTube, TikTok, whatever it is, that is going to teach you so much more than I could sitting there explaining to you the differences between the two. I think if you are going to a film school that is focused in traditional, you have to also just consume a ton of the content at the same time. And then also understand, like, what's really interesting about digital is because it's non-union, a lot of the jobs sort of flow into one another. And so being prepared for that, I think, is also really helpful. I mean, a lot of people aren't just producers, they're predators now. They're producing, they're editing.
What a tough name for that job, by the
I know.
way. I've thought that since the beginning.
I didn't think that name was going to stick.
I didn't think that name was going to stick. The first time I heard it, I was like, predator.
Producer, editor.
Can you imagine
Yes.
being like, that's my job title? I'm a predator, which is a lot of people's job title.
Yeah.
Yeah. Tough.
Yeah. We were
Tough.
just called
We're working
producers.
to rebrand it. If you are a predator right now, we can
that's the
workshop
problem.
it.
There isn't
Yeah.
really a name until creator sort of came around.
Yeah.
I think creator's probably a better title for that. But I think expecting things to flow interdepartmentally. They're not going to be as segmented on a digital set. And with that, you also have to protect yourself. So on our sets, we follow a lot of the union rules still.
What do you think creators can learn about what's happening in traditional right now?
I think there's a lot that creators can learn about from traditional, specifically in the content I make. It's a lot about being very well organized, having a schedule, structure, plan. I mean, there are content creators I know that don't know about the 6-hour lunch break rule. I'm like, you got to break your crew and have them have lunch after 6 hours.
I don't know that rule.
I didn't know that
Yeah,
rule.
what's the rule?
Yeah, no.
Every 6 hours, you have to provide a meal on a film set.
No one get
Sorry.
any ideas. This
Sorry,
isn't isn't a traditional film set.
Wow, mutiny is taking place in our office right now.
You just
Michelle, how could you do this?
This is a non-union show, just so everyone knows. Yeah.
You will not get lunch.
It's different when
No lunch.
it's different when it's full time. You know, we didn't have that at Buzzfeed either. But you know, like even showing up to production meetings with potential collaborators and partners and having a schedule for the day. Some people just show up and figure it out, and that works great. But it's also so much more efficient and a better experience for the crew when you're really well prepared. I mean, I love Excel. So I spend a lot of time in Excel doing scheduling and planning, and safety meetings are really important with the content we make too. So I just think there's a lot to be learned about, like, being prepared and thinking of every single detail.
I think that's really important. And I do think that there are creators like yourself that are moving YouTube in this direction of much more professional production.
I would love to continue to do something in the traditional space. I think it's awesome. I loved doing the show on HBO Max, Karma.
YouTube star Michelle Khare hosts a new series on HBO Max, Karma.
That summer that I did that show completely transformed who I am as a content creator, and was one of those like opportunities where I could learn something from traditional. Karma was a kids survival show where they took 18 teenagers, put them in the wilderness to survive for 3 weeks, and whoever won $50,000. So it was a pretty incredible show and an amazing opportunity to like be the Jeff Probst of. I loved the opportunity because a lot of my mentors on the show were people from Amazing Race, from Biggest Loser, from these huge shows, and they were literally directing me on how I could be a better host. And all of that knowledge I have brought back to my channel. If you watch the videos before I did Karma and after, huge difference in terms of my personal camera presence. How I interview somebody is completely different now versus before. Asking things that the audience would want to know, not knowing anything. So sometimes in interviews, I felt like I would skip right to a specific point I wanted to make, versus now I'm really thinking about how an audience member who is not here having the experience I am having would really want something broken down. So far more detailed, putting things right into the hands of the audience, because a host is there to be the voyeur, the conduit for the audience. sometimes you ask a question in an interview and they give you a really long-winded answer. You can't use that in the cold open for the Colin and Samir show. So sometimes I have them repeat it. Can you say that again in one sentence? Great. That's going to be our cold open.
Interesting. Wow. Very cool.
So does that experience on Karma now make you want to be proactive about maybe pitching a show that you would be the host of?
I would love to host another show. I think it would be amazing. I mean, I loved that experience. And it was also nice to only do one thing on that show. It was really, really nice. I think when the right opportunity presents itself, whether it's something we come up with and pitch or an opportunity where I step in as talent, I am so game for that. My primary focus right now is my YouTube channel, just because, as the theme of all of these interviews y'all have been doing, everything comes back to the content. It's the only thing I can control. I don't have to wait for a green light. And when I think about, should I spend 5 days of the work week on a pitch for a show where I'm going to have to explain what youtube.com is to a bunch of people in suits, would I rather do that, or would I rather sit down with our editors and producers and bang out the next 3 months of content that will not only net us more, immediate funds and opportunities, but also I think that if you can create something by yourself that grows on a YouTube channel, all of that other stuff comes. It's like a magnet. And when you let go of that, that's when the opportunities start to fade. So I want to hold on to my own lifeline.
And for something like Karma, during that experience, you can't work on your YouTube channel, I would assume.
I did.
Right? You did.
So I didn't want to give up the YouTube channel. They're like, well, are you going to pause? What are you going to do? And I said, don't worry about it. You're never going to hear about my YouTube channel. Because that was one of the concerns the producers had. They're like, we've worked with YouTube talent. It becomes this point of tension where they want to go and film and we can't. I said, you're never going to hear about my YouTube channel. So every day I woke up at 4 and I drove an hour and a half down the mountain to an ice skating rink. At this time, I was also training like an Olympic figure skater. I found a coach, had them drive in, and every morning before set, I would train at the ice rink for 2 hours, drive back up the mountain, shower, go to set, and never talked about it.
Wow.
That's
But that's what I do all the time. Like last week, I was doing cheerleading and boxing. So I would go to cheerleading, we would do tumbling, they're throwing me in the air, eat lunch, go to boxing for 2 hours.
How do breaks play in to the schedule? Like personal breaks for you?
Personal breaks?
Yeah. Like do you
like
hit that
sleeping?
point? Everything.
Yeah, actually, I have a great sleep schedule. We're very clear on weekends off. So previously, at the beginning of the channel, I would train a lot on the weekends because it wouldn't interfere with the 9 to 5 aspect of our job. And now I have realized training is my job. Like that is like me being an athlete on the channel, that has to be factored into the 9 to 5. So I don't do that anymore. It's always during the workday that I'm training.
Do you ever think about the fact that it's just you who is the ultimate engine behind all this? Something that we think about, that like the channel's called Colin and Samir. So like a video doesn't go out unless we're in it. Do you ever think about that when it comes to planning the next phase of your business?
Absolutely. Someone I look up to a lot is Blogilates, for example. She has
Cassie's
multiple.
awesome.
Yeah,
Cassie,
incredible.
Amazing.
Yeah.
She has her brand with her face on it, and she's also developing other brands that don't have her face on it. I think that's really smart. And I feel like I'm sort of in a phase where I'm still figuring out exactly what that would mean for me. I do have a lot of ideas, but right now, and something I really enjoyed about the Yes Theory interview y'all did was how they were sort of discussing that they've branched out, they've done other things, but everything comes back to content.
Yeah.
And for me this year, that has been my biggest focus. In the pandemic, we did a lot of stuff. Like we built the app, which has been amazing. We did a little bit of merchandise. I did an online course. Those were all amazing things. And now that the world has opened up a little bit more and we can film again to the capacity I want to film, in 2022, I really want to like explode the channel. That's my biggest goal.
Jimmy said that to us, MrBeast, when we were with him. He just kind of looked at us and he was like, that one of the things he thinks creators make a mistake on is diversifying too early. Because he was like, at the end of the day, if you actually every week just focus on making the best video possible, that's what's going to unlock the world for you.
Yes.
And you have to have a lot more patience than you think in like crafting a best in class product. And you look at some of the brands in the past that have focused on a singular thing and being the best in class at that thing, they're often the brands that last the longest. And I think that is something hard because in our industry, it's like opportunities just are coming at you every week, and they're all really exciting and really interesting. I'm curious just to go back to, as you started this channel, your independent channel, did everything just kind of work? Or were there challenges in the beginning? Like, did you start posting videos like the Victoria's Secret video, which is a fantastic video, has 10 million views? Like, was it just like, oh, wow, I make these videos and everyone loves them and money's coming in and everything works?
Absolutely not. I mean, there have definitely been hills and valleys throughout the whole process. And sort of what we were mentioning earlier is when you get a shout out or you're transferring an audience from somewhere else to yours, that's a nice bump in the beginning, but you have to deliver week after week on following up on that promise to all of those people. So, I mean, the Victoria's Secret video was a year into me being independent. And I released that video and it didn't do well for the first several weeks. It was like a couple 100,000 views maybe. For a video that I spent 5 weeks training for, I was like a little bit like disappointed. And then out of nowhere, it exploded in the algorithm weeks later, which is very unique, I think, because I feel like we put a lot of pressure on the first 24 hours or even 7 days of a video's success. And for me on my channel, I've actually found that evergreen success is the most lucrative and the most exciting, which is probably why earlier when we were talking about like if a video doesn't perform to standard, I always like to wait a little bit because sometimes I'll check back a few months later and it's like, oh, it hit 1 million views. I didn't even realize it. So that video, when that did well, really opened my eyes to what if I just commit more fully to all of the challenges I'm taking on. And I really find this unique way to trend jack stuff that's trending right now, but also make it more elongated documentary style.
Can you speak a little bit more on trend jacking, I guess, or like what you mean by that?
Yeah, so it's a term, I guess, that I've only heard recently. Okay. And it's something I learned a lot about at Buzzfeed, actually, was every morning at Buzzfeed, they would send us an email with, these are the 5 things trending on Facebook, on YouTube, whatever, best performing videos of the past 24 hours. No clue how they pulled all that information, but we would get an email every day. And we would see, best hashtags on Twitter. And because of the output and the turnaround was so quick there, we could quickly be like, oh, Kim Kardashian is in the news. Someone out there make a Kim Kardashian video and someone would do it.
Someone trained like Kim Kardashian.
Somebody.
Yeah.
Someone in the office did that. And so what I sort of wanted to do on my own channel was project trends. So one of the first series that I did was a series where I trained like different superheroes. So I trained with Spider-Man's lead stunt double. I trained with Batman's lead stunt double. I trained for a period of time. And then at the end, we'd film like a cinematic fight scene of me assuming the role as the character and really putting my skills to the test. And what I did was project the trend. So I took the year slate of movies and TV shows coming out. And I said, okay, Spider-Man Homecoming is coming out in July, this other Marvel property is coming out in September, and we will work backwards. So if I want a Spider-Man video to come out the day the Spider-Man movie comes out, I should start filming that 3 months ahead. And that's sort of where we would filter and literally release a viral video the same day the movie releases, because it's going to be everywhere. It's going to be all the Google searches. It's going to spike in Google Trends for that opening weekend. And that was sort of my initial strategy.
Wow. That's really interesting. I love that. That's cool. Because it seems like a lot of people kind of look at that concept of like social hacking or like trend hacking, I'll call it, as like something that's already existing. There's a wave that's already happening on YouTube, and then you hop on that wave.
Yeah.
I would say that's how we operate.
That's how we operate.
Like, we're very reactionary.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, when you have the opportunity to be reactionary and produce something super quickly, then it absolutely works. But even for as recently as our 911 dispatch video, that video has been edited for months, and we held it for Emergency Telecommunicators Week, so that all of those publications would already be celebrating 911 dispatchers. Oh, great. There's a piece of content that talks about how this job is made. You're kind of like doing the job for the journalist. That was actually a lot of my initial approach on the channel of, I would make a video like Victoria's Secret, and then I would reach out to all of the publications, Daily Mail, Cosmo, whatever, that would normally make an article about this type of thing and push my stuff to them. And sometimes it worked and sometimes it didn't, but that was sort of an early technique I used to try and get our videos on other platforms.
I love that idea of thinking about doing the job for the writers.
Yes. Which is
Who
similar
already
to
have
the
the
agent
distribution.
thing.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Making it easy for them.
It's really important. We talk about this spectrum of being an artist and a distributor, right? Like a distributor is the person in the studio who's like, we need to make another Spider-Man so that, because people buy tickets for Spider-Man. And the artist is someone who's like, I'm making this. I don't care what anyone thinks, right? This is my expression. And creators are somewhere in the middle, but probably shade a little bit over to the distributor side, where they have to think about, how is the audience going to receive this, and how do I get this in front of as many people as possible?
The artist is not holding the 911 dispatch video.
Right.
Like when the artist feels it's done, it's going out.
Yeah.
Right. Like the distributor is what you're doing.
Sure.
It's very strategic.
I guess I was going to ask, do you agree with that? Do you agree that you have to have more of like a distribution mindset
Of course.
to make it as a creator?
Of course. Constantly distribution mindset, I think. And for me, the artistic part of it was making the video, making the edit perfect. I'm very, very proud of how that edit turned out. I think it's an amazing video. And then the distributor within me says, wait a second, we could, get more views. We could really, grow the channel strategically. Now, can I prove that releasing it during National Emergency Telecommunicators Week actually made a huge impact? I don't know. But a lot of the comments were like, hey, I'm celebrating this week, and thanks for, honoring the job that my mom does, whatever it may be. And another reason we held it was because we wanted to do 3 banger releases in a row. So in April, we released the video where I went to etiquette school. We released 911 and we released SWAT all within 2 weeks of each other. And that month was our best performing month of all time on the channel. And we 7x'd our AdSense in just that month by holding the videos and having them, come out one after another. Because I don't know if you guys have seen this, but if you have a video do well, it will typically give a early bump to the video directly following, because it's going to appear and recommended. So we're like, well, I think these are going to do well. Let's group them together. And it worked pretty well.
There's so much distribution strategy in that. I love that. I would also say those 3 videos have amazing thumbnails.
That was also a big change we made.
It feels like there was like a shift, because those are like incredibly well-crafted thumbnails.
Thank you.
And I'm
I
curious
would say,
about that. Yeah.
Thumbnails have been personally my weakest everything, because they drive me crazy. It's like we work, for a year sometimes on a video, and it's like the night before, oh my God, we have to make a thumbnail.
Right.
And I don't know if y'all have been seeing on Twitter, I'm sure you have, I feel like you guys follow some of the same people I do, where there is this new echelon of thumbnail Twitter artists, like Venture or Jay or TKG. They're very talented.
There's some
people.
really niche thumbnail Twitter accounts too. There's one that's called Thumbnail Colors that we
Have you seen that
find
one?
ourselves featured on, which is like,
that's more about like the art of the thumbnail.
Yeah, it's like, what are the dominant colors in this thumbnail?
Well, that's, I guess, good psychology to understand.
Yeah.
But earlier this year, I joined a accountability group with some other YouTubers.
Right.
And we meet every week and critique each other's thumbnails and titles. It's amazing. And I hadn't experienced that level of feedback and, self-critiquing since I worked at Buzzfeed, honestly. And that has really helped me hone a lot of the thumbnails. So from there, I got, we connected with some of these amazing Twitter thumbnail artists who have been working with us. And it is just amazing what they are able to do. I don't even understand. They'll deliver an asset to me and I'm like, how did this happen?
Oh, wow.
How on planet Earth did this come out of the photo I delivered to you? If you look at some of their before and afters, it's insane. So very impressive work by them. And I do think that thumbnails have been.
It's a massive part of
helpful.
distribution though, because you're right. You can make the best video possible.
But if you don't have a good poster,
Yeah.
who's
You have
gonna
a
go see
split
it?
second,
Yeah.
maybe less,
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
get someone to actually watch.
it's such a simple concept that like, if people don't click on the video, they're not going to watch it. But to craft that in a world where the competition is increasingly high for people's attention, I think that is like such an interesting challenge. And it has like created a whole market of jobs of people who like, how important to your revenue a thumbnail designer is really interesting. Not to drive the price up of your thumbnail designer, but it is like a really important role in all of this when it comes to distribution and if people are going to watch your channel or not. But those 3 thumbnails I just wanted to say.
Thank you.
Now on the accountability group, that is a theme that has kind of come as the creator economy has started to rise and to be this like actual job that people can have and career that people can have. Accountability groups and masterminds or kind of like workshops or something that have emerged. I even went on a trip in January to Colorado with a bunch of creators where we just sat in a cabin and watched each other's channels.
What? I want to go.
Yeah, and it's so interesting that it's essentially we are pulling some things from what a traditional media company would do and decentralizing them, saying we're just going to organize ourselves in different pods and do what we would do if we were working all at one big media company together. But what I think is really fascinating about our space is you're meeting with creators that technically you're potentially fighting for attention with them, right? You're actually competing for viewers' attention. But I've found that our space is unbelievably supportive of each other. Like, there's creators sometimes who unsolicited hit us up and are like, hey, this video would probably do better if you did this. It's like, what?
That's awesome.
What a
I think it's
fascinating...
because there's still enough attention to go around for everyone.
Like it's not a scarcity mindset yet, but it's a really interesting thing that we have that in our community.
I think it's because like a, rising tide lifts all boats, whatever that saying is, I'm butchering it. Because the more people we get watching YouTube, more eyes we all get in a way, maybe, but
there's still this like misunderstanding, right? Like Jimmy Kimmel this week during Upfront said, did you see this?
I almost launched into orbit seeing that tweet.
Yeah, it was amazing. He said, YouTube does not deserve its own Upfront. YouTube is not television. YouTube is medicine we use to tranquilize our kids. And I was like, wait a second, Kimmel. And I actually wrote a LinkedIn post about this because I was upset. But I was like...
As we all do.
We all turned to LinkedIn, But I was like, I think Kimmel's channel has done 68 million views in the past 30 days. I would bet that more people watch him on YouTube than on TV. And the people who are watching him on YouTube have no idea how to watch him on TV. Like...
Same.
TV,
I don't have
without YouTube, he might be extinct to most people. No one even knows he exists. So I think it's like we still have this kind of collective passion around proving everyone wrong.
Exactly.
That I think is what binds us all together, right?
It's that's a strange tweet.
It was a really strange comment. It was part of his upfront for whatever network.
ABC?
And I'm like,
You don't even know what I don't even know what network she's on.
I know it's ABC only because I watched a clip of him on YouTube last night.
Right.
and it's like, isn't he buddy with Mark Rover?
Yeah.
Weren't they making a show together?
Yeah.
Come on, man.
Yeah. But maybe he did it to put himself in the headlines. Who knows? Distribution strategy from Kimmel there.
I'm pretty sure Lily Singh said this. I'm pretty positive she said this. I hope I'm not butchering this, but she said something that really stood out to me a few years ago, where it doesn't matter how successful you are the only person that cares the most about your success.
Yeah. I totally agree with that. I think that is actually one of the wonderful byproducts of this like entrepreneurial wave is that people are having to learn how to believe in themselves. You have no other choice. Like for us, when we've been doing this for 10 years and there's been a lot of times where this didn't work a lot, where we're making extremely little amounts of money, but still trying to make videos and sitting together and being like, I believe we have it in us to have this be a career. We just haven't solved it. And the perseverance to keep going through that is, I think, what we're all learning collectively in this career now.
And I feel like that bravery goes away over time because we all had it when we decided to make the URL, to make the account and to post that first video. That in and of itself takes so much bravery. And, you get caught in this place of, well, the videos aren't performing as well, or maybe they are. And you start to self-doubt. And if only we could tap into, why the hell did I think I was brave enough to quit my job and think it would be self-sustaining? Where did that come from? I need that today.
that fear is a fascinating ingredient in our decision making, and it does, I think, as success increases somehow, and I would speak for myself in this, fear actually becomes more of an ingredient in your decision making as your success increases because you have something to lose. And I think that is one of the most fascinating things, where you would think you have more confidence in your decision making. Sometimes it's riddled with more fear because you don't want it to go away. You know what it took to get there, and you're terrified that it could all go away in the same amount of time or quicker.
When you said, I need that today, is there something specific you're referencing, or like a feeling that you have right now?
Oh, I feel great today.
Today you
I feel
great.
great.
Yeah.
I just mean, there are times when I say to myself, I need that today. When I'm about to be thrown in a basket toss at cheerleading, I need that bravery today.
Yeah.
When I'm about to get punched in the face at boxing sparring for the video that we're filming right now, I need that bravery today.
But to come on the Colin and Samir show, nothing.
You guys give me water.
we got coconut water, cold brew, whatever you need.
So
Flow alkaline.
why do you? I don't know.
Why?
I mean,
Why are you the way that you are?
The question is it's essentially like, why does all of this matter to you? Like, why does growth on the channel matter? Why does this show matter? Like, what is this for you personally, outside of business success and audience growth? Like, why?
I think there are a lot of reasons that are a why for me. I didn't see someone who looks like me on Disney Channel growing up. Sure, of course. I want to see more women kicking ass on YouTube. Yeah, okay, of course. But also I think philosophers come up with the sentiment of life that we should live by, and artists are the people who communicate that. And for me, in a way, with Challenge Accepted, I not only want to inspire people to go out and do the dreams that they have for themselves, or maybe even pursue a passion or profession that they wouldn't have otherwise. I also want to highlight the people who are doing this every day. Sometimes people will say, oh, how are you doing this? You're so strong. And I'm like, I did it for a month. What about the person who's been doing it their whole life and have been risking their lives to save others and to make miracles happen? To me, those are the real heroes. And that's who I want to highlight on my channel. As an influencer, I feel a massive responsibility to uplift unheard voices and just share more raw experiences. I think that a lot of the professions we show on our channel have only been shown in a very polished light previously, or the light of a quick news clip here and there, or even a self-produced documentary. And what I want to show is real, raw, and authentic. And that's why a lot of times the videos have a very strong emotional component. You see me fail, you see me hurting and struggling, because that's part of what it takes to get to the professional level. And I don't want to hide that. I want to honor the people who do it.
I love that.